I'm going to tie my version of a casual Frenchie, and I'm starting off with a size 14 nymph hook with a 3/32 copper tungsten bead, and I'm going to give this fly some additional weight, so I'm going to take some turns with my lead here just to give it some additional volume. Maybe 10 turns or so, and I'll push that up and get that in secure. Now I'm going to take my thread, and this is going to act as the thorax as well, and the hot spot. I'm going to use fire orange, a 70 fire orange for this, and just get it started behind the lead to secure it, and then wrap it up through the lead just to make sure everything's in there nice and snug. Now for the tail material, one of the substitutions I make, I really like mallard flank for my tail, so I'm going to take a stretch of mallard flank here, maybe half a dozen or so fibers, and I'm going to make that the length of the hook shank, and I'll tie that in, and tie it in right on top. Alright, for the ribbing I'm going to use a fine or small copper wire, and I'll tie that in behind the lead as well. And finally, for the body, I'm going to use a darker colored pheasant tail, and I'm going to take maybe 4 or 5 fibers of this, and I'm going to tie it in by the tip. These fibers have a natural taper to them, with the tips being the thinnest, and since I want to taper it thin to thick, I'll tie it in tip first. Alright, then I can advance my thread all the way to behind the bead. Now I want this nice cross section just like with any pheasant tail nymph, so if I look at the front of it, I'm going to tie this in counter clockwise. So that way when I tie in my copper wire, it'll give me those good cross sections. And when you make these turns, you're going to want to twist on you. So when I make them, every time I come back through and I twist them back. I'll bring this all the way up to get my fingers out of the way here in a second. Bring that all the way up behind the bead head, and then I can come back through and clip that off. Now when I wrap my copper wire, again looking at the front, if I do it in a clockwise fashion, now it'll give me those cross sections that I'm looking for. And just some nice even wraps through, and I'll come back, secure that, and I can just helicopter the wire right off. Now I'm going to build that thorax, and I want the thorax to be about a bead head in width, maybe a little bit better. And so I'll just start building that up. And one thing I like to add that is different from the original pattern is a flashback to this. So I'll take my pearl flash and cut off a section of that. Make sure I'm right over the top of it. And I'll tie that in. Make sure it's centered. And now I can finish off with my turns of my whip finish. trim off the excess thread and excess flash. And now I can take just a drop of head cement to this. Right over the back and just let it run down the sides. And that's it. So this is my version of the casual Frenchie.